Hello everyone, and welcome to version 0.6.0 of Grid Singularities D3A. I have a couple updates for you all in this release. Just to give you an overview, the updates are adding an infinite bus as part of the market maker. We added a bid and offer matching graph. We added a really big feature called simulation events, which also allows you to zoom in and out of a timeline that the events are presented on, so I'll show you that. And then also the ability to pause or stop a simulation, which also helps us save the results on the results page. So let's go into those details. I want to use the example of our community as a service simulation, and this one we go back to a lot. It's a community with 5 homes in it. Each of these homes has load and PV, and then there's a storage for the community. So before, we wanted to model a feed-in tariff. So in the market maker, we put the price that the community would buy from the utility, and then in the feed-in tariff, we had the initial buying rate, which is the cost, which is the amount that the PVs can sell their power back to the grid at. But now what we've done is we've added a new mode for the market maker where you can pick infinite bus, and that just means that you can set the selling rate as well as the buying rate. So now I can put 12 here, and the market maker then functions as the utility setting the highest and the lowest price for the markets. And so in this way, you can model the feed-in tariff here as well as the selling price of the grid. So I'll click save, and then because of that, I can delete the feed-in tariff, and then we can run the simulation. And so inside the simulation, I can go to the market maker, and here I'll start to see exactly the energy being sold and being bought. So here we can see the energy that the market maker sold to the community at 30 cents per kilowatt hour, and then if it buys any energy back from the grid, we'll see that appear here in energy bought, and then this energy is bought back at 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's the market maker feature, and we also have the infinite bus is only available if the market maker is grid connected, or it can be an infinite bus if it's grid connected or islanded. And so you can see here, if I change something in my simulation after I run it and I hit save, I'll get this warning that says, if I make any changes to my modeling page, then the results will be deleted because the results will no longer be relevant for the simulation. So we added this warning here, so I can click to go out of that so that I never accidentally delete my results. So now I can see all of my results on my results page. And the way that this works is before we would run a simulation from the top of the page, but now this button just goes to the results page. So I can rerun my simulation, and it's warning me that my results will be deleted. So I click continue. If I wanted to duplicate my simulation, I could also do that. So I keep this version, and then the duplicate version I can make whatever changes I want to make. So I'll click continue, and my simulation starts running again. And then what I can do is I can pause my simulation, and you can see here we have this new status indicator that tells me how long my simulation, how much has been completed, the percent completed. So I can pause, resume it, and I can also abort my simulation. And so this comes more into play with events, which we'll get into, but it helps give the user more control over running, pausing, aborting the simulation, and then I can go and, maybe I want to add something to my community, but I will be warned in case I add something and then it deletes my results. So that is the pause and abort feature. And this directly relates to the events feature. So let me tell you about the events feature. The way the events feature works is while I'm running a simulation, I might want to add an event. As my grid is existing in a deploy mode, the grid will constantly be changing. There'll be new houses that will be added to the grid. Some devices might become deregistered, some might become registered, and different parameters inside devices might also be changed. So, for example, I might want to set or change the grid fees of my community. I might want to add additional areas, and so we call these events, as they are changes that occur to the grid while the simulation is running. And this is kind of preparing us for our Canary network that we will release later this year that shows a real-time running simulation connected to live meter data coming from communities. So in that case, we want to model having a live network that has devices and homes and different parameters, entering and exiting the grid. So let's do a simulation here where we add events. So I'll rerun the simulation and go to my results page. And so what I can do for this community, I could set the grid fee. And I could also maybe add an additional home to the community. And then inside this home, I would add a load and a PV. Great. And then maybe, let's see, I would want to delete this storage to see the impact there. So as I'm adding these events, they all are tracked on the timeline. So this symbol means that an event was updated. So it means an existing area or device changed something about its status. So here, the grid fee percentage increased from 0 to 4. Here's where I added my home, my load, PV, and then deleted the storage. And I can actually view the version of the grid when the event happened. So if I clicked here, then I can see this was what my grid looked like at this point in time at 3 a.m. And then when home 6 was added, my grid structure looked like this. Here's where I added the load, and then the PV. And here's the final version of the simulation. So then moving on to the results page, I can directly see the impact of my events in my results. So let's go to the community view. And in the community view, I can see my grid trading here. And I think we see here the storage is doing a lot of trading. So it is operating here, and it is selling back to the grid in the community. And so you can see after I've deleted my storage, it's no longer selling back. So let's click on the storage device, and I can go to my storage and see that it had 45% state of charge at the end of the day, and then it stopped discharging to my grid. And maybe I also want to see the impact of the home that I added. So I click here and I go to the home area. And inside the home area, I can see the self-sufficiency, self-consumption so far for the home. And then I can see the trading inside of the home. And so here, let's see, 12:30 was where my load started to buy. And I added my load at 12:15. So you can see it started to buy once it was added. And my PV was added at 1500. And then let's go to the house view. And I can see here is where my PV started to sell. So this is a really great feature where you can run a simulation and then make changes and already see those results the impact of the changes in the results. And for the community, I changed the grid fee, and I think this one is not as visible, but I click here and I go to the community view. And depending on the pricing and the strategies, I can see if my grid fee had changed anything. So if I was using the peak analysis tool, then I could see, we talked about this in a past video, where the minimum and maximum peaks would be and how that was impacted by the grid fee. So this is the events feature, and inside the timeline, yeah, I can actually zoom in on the timeline. In order to do this, I'll need to run my simulation for longer than 1 day. So I'll go ahead and do that. Yeah, and so what happens is if I duplicate the simulation, it will be duplicated, the version with the events saved. So when I rerun the simulation, my events would be deleted, and if I want them to be saved as permanent areas and agents, then I can duplicate the simulation. So let's run this for 3 days. And yes, my results will be deleted. And then during this time, I'll add some events. Oh yeah, here we have the energy peak percentage is already modeled there. And I'll add transformer capacity. So here I actually get multiple events, so if I change multiple parameters. And then let's add home 6. So in this case, I could actually compare different days. You know, if I added most of my, if I ran the first day without events and then added the events in the second day, then I could compare the impact of different days. So I can see the status. And one other thing is we show the status bar also on the home page, and you can see here that I can see here that my simulation is running. So going back to the results view, I think now we can add some more events. So maybe let's see the impact if we delete this house. So now that is another event. And then on Sunday we can, well, let's change, we can now turn the grid fees off. And then once we go to Sunday, we can delete the storage. I can also, if I need more time, I can pause the simulation and then go back and delete the storage and then continue. So if it's too much to do it while the simulation is running, it can also be paused. So to show you now, I can see 4 days, and I can zoom in on the timeline. So then I can see which events happened in which day. I can click on those events to view that area and view the load here was just added at the end of the day. So if I go to the next day, then I can see the load. So I can use this timeline to navigate through different days, which is pretty great. And then let's zoom back out and check on the storage. So now I can see the storage for the whole week. I can zoom in on Saturday and I can see the storage for Saturday, and then I can switch to other views and quickly see how my storage is changing each day depending on what's going on in the grid. Great, so that is an in-depth look at the events feature and also the zoom feature on the timeline. And so the last thing that I'll show you is the bid and offer matching graph. So let's go to the House 1 view. And if I go to the bottom of the page, we added a new graph. And so this graph shows bids, offers, and trades per market slot. So what we're showing is every market slot, we're running 15-minute market slots. So this first slot is from midnight, 0 hours, to 15 minutes, which would be 12:15 in the night. And here, all the purple dots are the bids in this market. And then the green or light blue dots here are the offers. And then if a trade happens, it's a blue dot. And so you can see the trade here on the tooltip, the market maker sold to the load. So what's happening in this market is all of the bids and offers are being plotted here, and then we can see where they trade. And this is the Home 1 market. So in Home 1, of course, the load and PV bids and offers are posted here. And those are posted in addition to external bids and offers that may travel to this market. So if we look here, we have the load bid, which is the load from this market. And then we also see load 4, load 3, and load 5 are also placing a bid here. And the storage. So as you know, with the D3A, it's a bottom-up structure. So when bids and offers happen, the load and PV first put their offers into the Home 1 market, and then they propagate into other markets. So in the Home 1 market, we can see bids and offers from other markets that have moved here as the simulation is running. And then if a trade happens in this market, it's shown on the bid, offers, and trades graph. But if it happens in another market, then it's shown in that market. So let's go back and see. So right now I'm just looking at the first 15 minutes of the day, but I can click here to go through the day. So let's go to the middle of the day where there's some PV. So here we can see we have a PV4 and PV3, and then the market maker. So here we can see the PV offers are decreasing their value, decreasing their offer in order to be competitive in the market. And then at the same time, the loads are increasing their bids. So during a market slot, this is how our template strategies work. And when they meet, a trade is scheduled. So I think in this case, the trade was scheduled in a different market, so we don't see the trade marker here. But let's... Yeah, so maybe let's look now at the community level. And here I can see that the trade matched in the community market because there were two trades here, one from PV5 buying from load 4 and then, or selling to load 4, and then PV selling to load 4. And we're going to add an additional graph in our next deploy, but you'll be able to zoom in and see this exact trade inside this graph. So this happened at 10:37. And this is still the first day, October 24th. So we can go 10:30. And so the trade happened during this time. And so pretty soon we'll have a feature where you can actually zoom in to this 15-minute market slot and see the individual trades there. And so this simulation is running for 4 days, so I can go to other days and then also see when the trades happened and what the bids and offers were in those different market slots. Yeah, so for the storage, you can see it's offering energy and also bidding energy at the same time. And in the beginning of the day, you see the market maker is offering its power, and then it also has a bid to buy at the feed-in tariff. So that, in a nutshell, is how the bid offers and trades graph works. And this is new, so we're kind of looking at how users respond to this and how it's used to sort of debug and understand more about what's going on in the simulation. So if you have any feedback related to this graph, it would be really interesting to hear. Of course, this graph shows a lot of detail. So in a real world scenario, we would not show this amount of detail to a customer, and so maybe it would only be available to the exchange operator, or even the exchange operator would not be able to see exactly where a bid or offer was coming from inside a home. So it might just say, home 2 instead of the exact device inside the home. And for our hackathon happening later in July, this graph might look very different because we're using our template strategies here, but as we introduce more chaos into the system, there might be devices operating under different strategies, which may not have strategies that increase or decrease the prices linearly like this. So that will be really interesting to see how that works out, and we'll be able to see which bids and offers end up winning and turning into trades here. So one last thing that I wanted to show, if it works, is you can see in that graph the offers are updating every 1 minute because that's the update interval. So here, like, my load is updating every 1 minute, but I could set my PV to update every 3 minutes instead, for example. And yes, this will delete my results. And then my storage, let's see, maybe I can update this every 5 minutes. So if I do that and run my simulation, I should be able to see the impact of changing the update interval on that graph. So let's see if the results show that. So I can already see this is my storage bid. So my storage starts bidding at 0 along with the loads. You can see the loads are increasing their bid every 1 minute. Because I changed the update interval for the storage, it's only increasing its bid every 5 minutes. And so it increases to here, and then remains at this price for the end of the day. So let's see if we can see the PV. So it's going to be for the might be easier to see inside the home level because I just changed it for the first PV. So here we can see the PV made its first offer at 12:15. And we're only looking at just the PV, not PV 2 or 3. So we can see here it updates its offer after 3 minutes. So PV 2 and 3 are updating their offer every 1 minute, but just PV is updating its offer every 3 minutes because we changed the update interval. So that just kind of shows you how changing the strategies actually changes the prices of the bids and offers, and then might later impact which trades happen. So here, depending on how the PVs are updating their offers, these PVs are competing with each other to get the trades with these bids. So anyways, that's an in-depth look. We'll write kind of a more simplistic explanation on our wiki, and maybe add some more detail there too. And I'll make some shorter videos that we're going to put on our social media that will go through these concepts a little bit faster. But if you want to understand everything that's new, then this is the video to watch for that. Great. So that's the end of of the update here. Yeah, when you zoom in at the top, like for Thursday, then all my graphs zoom. So this graph automatically zooms for Thursday, and so does this graph. So that can be really helpful if you see something interesting happening on one of these days. And we've shaded in the back of the timeline. So at the top, this is the net volume that's being traded on each of these days. And then the bottom is the average price. So here, maybe you see more price action, so you click to zoom in, and then you can immediately zoom in on the relevant graphs to see what was happening in the price. And then you just click the X to zoom out, and you can see all of the days here. Great, thanks a lot for listening to the tutorial video. We are having our first hackathon in a couple weeks, so we'll be excited to share the details of that with you, and we will have a new release coming in just less than 2 weeks, where we have a couple additional features that we're going to add specifically for the hackathon. So stay tuned, and you'll get to hear the details for the next release. Thanks.